So this is the second part of the video tutorial that I did the other day, making a table. So if you recall, I created a table in Maya, put it all together, table and legs, and next I was going to show you basically how to sort of create that kind of sculpted look by using other 3D programs. In particular 3D Coat, but also I'm going to be using a program called Sculptress, which some of us may have used. I'm only using this out of personal preference. It's made by Pixelogic, who make ZBrush. I just like the functions on that, but you can continue working in 3D Coat if you want. So I'm going to kind of go slightly off at some point into Sculptress, but if you wanted to continue with 3D Coat, absolutely not a problem. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to open up the table. So you'll have exported your table as an OBJ, and what we're going to do here is I'm going to sort of import it for sculpting. Now the reason I'm doing this is it doesn't import it immediately as a voxel model, but as you know, as the model that you've exported it from. And the reason I'm doing that is, I don't know if it's me, but it seems to kind of at least keep some of the edges. When you kind of import as a voxel, it seems to soften a little bit. So I've got my table here, which I'm going to open, and this is pretty much as it was when I exported it from Maya. I'm going to hit enter. So it's just asking me if I want to kind of keep the dimensions. I'm going to click no, because I want it to be as I decided, and I'll click off that, and I'll just go into one of the, let's say the build up tool, and I'll put a shader on there. So you can see, if I just expand this out, right, so you can see here I've got the model. If I press W for wireframe, you can see there that it's pretty much the mesh that I created in Maya. Alright, so I quite like it because it's quite angular, but I do want it to maintain that kind of angular nature, but at the same time I want to kind of have that kind of carved look. So once I've got this, there's a couple of things I need to do. Now some of you may develop other ways to do this. This is the best way that I've found. Is first of all I want to resample it, so I'm going to go to resample, and I'll make it, at the moment it's about 4,224. I'm going to bump this up to, say, 1,000,000. So remember, I'm going to bake all this down eventually anyway. Click OK. There we go. So it's kind of maintained those edges. I mean, leave aside the shader, you know, this on there. It's essentially maintained the edges. I've got that angle. It's not smoothed everything out. I can look at it comparatively if I just press Ctrl and Z. You can see there's not really any change. I'll just go forward, redo, Ctrl Y. So that's all good. And next I'm going to change it to voxels. Now at the moment it's saying amount required 524,000. Okay, we'll go with that and just see what it does. Again, you know, just play it by ear. That looks okay to me. Yep, I'll go with that. That's all right. That's pretty much what I came in with. And so next what I want to do is I want to go to File. Now, okay, so before I go any further, I'm going to export this now. If you want to carry on in 3D Coat, by all means do it. I'm going to export this now into Sculptress, but if you want to kind of follow along using some of the tools here, like where are we? Like Scrape, like the Carve tool, absolutely be my guest. That's fine. The only thing I've found with Sculptress is it's very much like it's a stripped down version of ZBrush, but it just, the tools just seem to be just a bit nicer. That's all. As wonderful as 3D Coat is, I just kind of like the sculpting tools and that. So that's just personal preference. Anyway, File. I'm just going to. You can either go Export Scene or Selected Objects. I'll just go Export Scene, and I'll call it Table 3 because I've already got a Table 2. So I'll call this Table 3. I'm going to put it put it on the desktop for now. Click OK. and click OK on that. Okay, so I'm just going to close this down now. I know, so I'm just trying to save on CPU, so the less things I have running, the better. I'm going to open up Sculptress. Sculptress, if you don't know, is an entirely free bit of software. It's made by Pixelogic, as I've mentioned, and it's great. I mean, you can create game assets in this. I repeat, you can create game assets in this. You can import OBJs that you've made in, say, Maya, retopologize them in either 3D Coat or even in ZBrush, but then you probably just stick with ZBrush, not this. But if you wanted to, you can use that. What else could you use? Sculpt GL, which is an online bit of software. You could retopologize in that, put it into this if you wanted to. There's a myriad of different ways that you can, or approaches that you can take. But what I'm going to do here is, I'm not going to go into the interface. You can have a look at this at leisure. Suffice to say, it's fairly simple to kind of to decipher. It's got crease, it's got rotate, scale, draw, flatten, grab, inflate, pinch, smooth. You can look at wireframe. You can import other objects in there, and you can create planes. It's a great little tool, you know, just for not only for doing 3D but also for doing concept art. Anyway, I'm going to and it puts this as default. So this object here, if I just put the symmetry on there, you can see there it puts that as default. You might want to, if you are new to this, is just have a play with it. So I'm just going to hold down Shift here just to avoid kind of going back and forth here, and you can do things like, you know, create faces, do all kinds of stuff. It's pretty cool bit of kit. All right, you can sort of create, yeah, just really quick. You know, like it is literally child's play. The things you can do with this, you know, just in terms of sort of creating like little creating monsters and doing all kinds of stuff. It's really brilliant. You have got to kind of watch it with your poly count. It has a tendency, like all programs, to crash. All right, so Maya does that. Many programs do that, right? So it's just something to bear in mind. It's just a little bit laggy at the moment. I think it's because I've got I'm streaming this at the moment, so I've got OBS kind of in the background, so it's a little bit laggy, but brilliant. If you want to kind of create weird alien monsters and just, you know, you're stuck for ideas, this is really a cool tool. But anyway, we're going to do away with that. I'm going to go to import. I'm going to go to table, go to the desktop, table 3, which is there. It'll ask me if I want to add it or as a new scene. I want it as a new scene. All changes will be lost. That's okay. There we go. And there's our table there in all its glory. Now if I press W, you can see there, I'm using the middle mouse to go in there, you can see it's very dense. It's triangulated, so it's not quadrangulated, but that's looking very good. It's basically triangulated the voxels the voxel model that I created. Anyway, oh, it looks like I've got a Welshman. Yo, I didn't realise this was going out so quickly. So yo back. Okay, so for anyone else who's going to be tuning in on this, I'm actually doing this for my first year and second year game students at Coventry University. But anyone else is welcome to join in. I will be re-uploading this as a bit more of a polished video, along with a previous video that that I created in creating this table. So this table, so just to recap, this table that we're creating is for a current live brief that the second years are doing, but it's open to the first years as well. And it's basically centered around creating a kind of low poly looking object, but it's going to be high poly, but we're going to bake this out. So I'm going to do this video as sort of part 2. Part 3 will be concerned with really baking and painting the object, so that'll be to come either possibly today, next week. But so for anyone tuning into this, welcome. I'm going to be like I say, uploading another couple of videos after this relating to it. Anyway, without further ado, so I'm going to press W, and So what I'm going to do now is, now I've kind of got this set up, and this is why I like using Sculptress. I want to first of all, so like if you ever sort of carved anything in wood, like with a knife, with it's like a scalpel or a chisel, whatever. This is the kind of chiseled effect that I'm kind of going after. And I'm going to be using this Flatten Tool to kind of do that. So at the moment it kind of looks quite angular, it looks a little bit kind of blocky, but if I just make a few adjustments here, I'm going to hold down Shift. You can see there now it's a little bit laggy, obviously because of the stream, but I can start to kind of sculpt into this, and it's like ZBrush. You can get some really nice sculpting kind of effects in there. So that's all I'm doing here. I'm just kind of going into it, and you can see there it's got that kind of nice already. If I just zoom out a little bit, it's kind of like looking carved, and this is in before I've painted. And I'm going to use the Crease Tool. So imagine like wood's kind of got like little chips out of it. So again, you can kind of start to do stuff like this in there, little kind of nicks in the wood, and again play around with the kind of strength of that. You don't want it to be too strong, and also just be wary of putting too much detail in, because when we go into painting in 3D Coat, we'll be able to kind of put a lot of those effects in there. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take it off that tool, go back to flatten, and I'm just going to spend a little bit of time just going around creating this kind of carved look in there. Yeah, very, very laggy. This is obviously OBS has taken up a lot of the CPU on the computer. I haven't got the fastest computer in the world, so anyway. So hopefully you can see it's starting to kind of get a bit more of a organic kind of look about it. And this is simply just by flattening off the edges. So making it like it's kind of carved. I live in Derbyshire, and I was walking with a friend. This place near Grindleford, which is near Hathersage, and there's woodland there, which is it's just like something out of Lord of the Rings. Absolutely amazing woods, and there's a bridge there, which is like it's just been carved on the spot, and wonderful to see. So I'm always influenced particularly by my surroundings. So definitely, when you're doing stuff like this, you should definitely, if you can, as well as looking on the internet, just tune into your environment, go for walks, have a look at wood, or whatever it is that you're doing. The internet's great for certain things, but not for direct experience. So it's just something to bear in mind. Okay, so again, so all I'm doing really, I'm just repeating the same actions over and over again. Really, is looking at just sculpting into this, flattening this off. I might just increase that a little bit. I don't want to do too much. I want to get like a sort of an overall carved look about this. So really, what I'm doing is I'm sort of chamfering the edges. That's essentially what I'm doing, chamfering. Yeah. You want to have that almost, how can I put it? Almost like you're kind of carving it out of chocolate almost. It's that kind of lovely, kind of chunky, blocky kind of feel about it. But the irony is that it's very, very high poly. Okay, so hopefully your computer won't be as laggy as mine is. I'm sensing real lag going on here, but anyway, at least it's working. And thank heavens for small mercies. All right. Sorry about that. Someone's phoning. It's always typical, isn't it? Someone's phoning me when I'm in the middle of a video. I'll call them back. Okay. So there's no real particular method apart from, you know, use reference. So look at other kind of like maybe other 3D artists who do this kind of style. Look at what they do, and you know, be inspired by it. So always, you know, get reference. Okay, that's looking good. Now for the top, I'm just holding down Shift and I'm just smoothing this out a little bit. I'm not going to really put much detail in there. I should take the strength of that a little bit. If you want to kind of like, you know, sculpt into the geometry, you can do. And I might just sort of soften out there. I mean, there is a smooth tool I think I can use. There we go. Take that up. And just ease up on the, you can see there. Just getting rid of those obvious angular shapes. Okay. And I'm going to go back to flatten. And basically doing the same thing now with the legs. Putting that kind of sculpted, so you can see the difference, right? Just got, you can see the difference now between the two. We've got one on the right, one on the left, and it just has that. Now it's kind of like starting to kind of pop. It's got that real kind of, and of course you can use other tools like the grab tool. So the grab tool is quite good for for just deforming certain areas, like kind of wood being as it is, you might want to just make it so it's not so symmetrical. Imagine this like this has got a history. This isn't just a table. It's probably been through a lot. It could be like 100 years or a couple of 100 years, who knows. So it's seen a bit of life, right? So you want to be able to kind of convey that with with how it kind of looks visually. All the little scrapes, the nicks, all the maybe even carvings in it, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, okay, that's not looking too bad. And again, you could use the grab tool. Don't go too overboard with it. You want to just kind of make it so it's not so obviously symmetrical. You need to kind of create all these little kind of bumps, and I don't know, just give it a character, but don't go too over the board, and try not to put too much detail in there. A word of warning with Sculptress: the more details, like at the moment I've kind of, it's got a fair few. What we've got there, 6 million, or was it 64 million? I don't know. 6,401,008 triangles. It's yeah, there's quite a lot in there. So just be wary, and remember that we're going to retopologize this. So there's other details we'll be able to use with like alpha brushes and things like that. Okay, so just going for the next bit now. Go back to the Flatten Tool, and basically you're just sort of repeating the process. So a lot of this is just real, once you've kind of got that like formula, it's just repeating that process. It's going through again and again and again. But yeah, my computer definitely doesn't like streaming and 3D modeling at the same time. It is struggling quite a lot. Okay. Now again, I'm just showing this for the purposes of like a video. Of course, you can put a lot more detail and take a bit more time on this. You don't have to work at the speed that I'm working at. This is purely just to kind of show you a working process that I've done in the past with students. And you could quite comfortably spend a couple of hours, if not more, working into this, or putting into it. You could be doing a bit of research on there as well, so don't feel that you have to kind of work as quick as this. Okay. And again, with this, I could use the move tool, or the grab tool, sorry, and just move bits around like so. Oops, didn't want to do that. Just play around a little bit with these corners, just accentuating them really. Oops, you just want to be able to kind of give, even though it's like an inanimate object, You want to give it sort of, I know it might sound a bit strange to say this, but you want to give it personality. This is what makes it interesting. If you don't give it personality, it will not be interesting. So it's just something to bear in mind, when you're making assets for games. Excuse me, when you're designing. Is, I do talk to a lot of people from the industry, from the games industry, and this is kind of like, again, this is just sort of feedback that I get from them about what they're looking for with portfolios. Obviously depending on what you're going to be, whether it's like, concept artist, character, 3D character artist, 3D environment artist, whatever capacity you're going to be working in, is that this is kind of what they want to see. It's not just like, oh well, sculptor, do concept art of a table and then make the table. It's like, no, just give it personality, make it look cool, think about its history. All these things kind of come into play. Alright, okay, so go back with that. Now again, you can sort of keep going and keep going and keep going with this. I'm not going to. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to get it to the stage where I'm going to export this. I'm going to put it into 3D Coat, and then I'm going to stop this part of the tutorial, and then in the next tutorial following I'm going to get into painting. So that'll be the next step with this. But so let's say we're happy with this. It's all looking good. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I mean, of course, there's little bits I'm looking at here which probably need a bit of work, but I'm not going to get too fussed about that. But let's say it's all good to go. It's like, yep, happy with that. All right. Basically, we're just going to export. So I'm going to export it as an OBJ. I'll call it table. Oops. Call it table 3. No, table 4. Put it on my desktop. Okay. And then I'm going to close this down. I don't need to save it. Yeah, I don't mind. Click OK. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up 3D Coat. So again, if you've not used 3D Coat before, if there's anyone outside of the people that I teach who's watching this video, 3D Coat's a great little program. You can do a number of things. It has quite an easy user interface, and it's got a really good read topology tool. It's got a good renderer as well, a bit like Keyshot. Yeah, you can do all lots of cool stuff in that. I'll perhaps do another video another time about that. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to use it for retopologizing. So once you open the program up, I'm going to go to voxel sculpting. I'm going to go and find now my table, which should be here. Okay, move it over to one side. And there's nothing there. Great. Okay, let's try that again then. Let's go to New. Don't save. I know it's there. Alright, we'll try it voxel, we'll try it as a surface. We'll see how we get on. No preview available. There it is. I don't know why it didn't open before. The answer is a lemon. Okay, so that's all looking like pretty much what I was doing in Sculptress. I'll hit enter, and it's asking me, do I want to keep the initial scale? I'm going to say no. And basically, just to kind of look at it in terms of like what it might look like in the future, I'm just going to select one of these tools here, and I'll just go with like a neutral shader. You can see there. So that's pretty cool. Now, for those who haven't used 3D Coat before, it's if I press W, you'll be able to see that. In fact, if I just, you know what, I'll select this copper here just to sort of show you. It's made up of a thing called voxels. So a bit like sort of, it's like it's triangulated, but the voxels allow the person to basically sculpt into objects and without having to retopologize. It's not like see, I don't think with ZBrush has that function, but you have to kind of use Dynamesh. You have to basically remesh it. And what 3D Coat does, it just basically continues to voxelize as you sculpt, so there's no stretching that occurs. So it's pretty cool that way. If I just press W now, you'll see, it's a pretty cool bit of kit. Obviously this isn't the effect that I'm looking for. I'll be looking for something a little bit more neutral than that. But there are a number of things that you can kind of use on there, and different types of reflectivity, whether it's something kind of varying kind of specularity, something that's kind of fairly dull, a matte, or something that's quite shiny like glass. So it's pretty cool for that. Personally, I wanted something a little bit more neutral. Now I could create something right here. I'll just call this base. You don't have to do this, by the way, folks. I mean, I'm just showing you, just to sort of show you really. And I can give this a color, make it sort of black, because I want it to be kind of fairly neutral, and click OK, and that's what it'll be. I'll bake it out as that. If you wanted to kind of say play around with, so you can see there's the material that I've just created, or is it there? I've lost it. No, that's stone. Is it at the top? Let's go and have a look. No. Okay, I appear to have lost it. That's copper. Okay. Base, there we are, sorry, base. If I then go to open current object settings, you can also play around. You can put images in there. Again, I'm not going to get into that today, but you can put an image in there, but also you can play around with the glossiness. So you can kind of make it kind of glossy if you want, like so. It'll sort of do this sort of default glossiness there, and you can kind of play around with the metalness as well, and opacity and all kinds of stuff, whatever. But again, I'm wary about getting into that at this point in time. I'll just click OK and leave that as is, right? The main part I want to get into is I want to leave this blank, and I want to get into retopologizing. Alright, so 3D Coat has this very, very easy function. If we'll right click on here, so this is just the easy option, is auto topo and instant meshes here. And I'll try it at 4,000. Let's see how we get on at that. It can be a little bit hit and miss. Let's try that anyway. See what it does. I wanted to try and get as much detail as I can. Alright, so that's pretty cool. That's looking alright. I might go with that. And if you want to see these little bits here, this is probably where it's not going to get it, and it'll come out as black on the other side of this when we go into painting. But I might just see if the extrusion kind of helps. And the extrusion basically, it makes sure that when it's scanned, it kind of covers most of these areas. You can see there, because we're working on like a fairly kind of low poly model, bits of this will not get covered. It'll not scan it. Yeah, it's not the end of the world, and we can kind of paint over it, so it's not like, we can go with this, and it will capture, it will bake some of the details, but you might just want to expand out the extrusion a little bit and just see if that works. Okay, we can kind of go with that. Let's go with that for now and just see what it looks like. Okay, once you've got that, you see there we've automatically as well gone to retopology. What I'm going to do is now I'm going to go down to, on the left hand side here, down to where it says edge loops, and I'm literally just going to drop an edge loop in there, and this is basically going to create our UV map. I'm going to continue scrolling down to where it says auto map, and basically it'll just automatically UV it for us. Yeah, so, it's similar to kind of the automatic UV mapping in Maya. But that kind of looks all right. It looks fairly normal. Now I do know that if you are seriously thinking about making a game and not just sort of creating art, but doing a game, doing it this way is not the best method, particularly for creating environments. You ideally need to kind of stitch these together. The more UVs that you have for a game, for a game asset, the more processing power it's going to take up. So again, I'm not going to get into this too much, but as a general rule, as games artists, like people, students making assets for games, going down the automatic method of just using what I'm doing at the moment, long term is not a good strategy. It's good for like just getting instant results, but ideally what you need to be doing is creating your UVs from using the tools that are on here. And it does have these great tools, and I'll probably do another video on this where you can do you can actually create, so it's a bit like the retopology tool in Maya. You can do create your model, create like UVs, like a retopology for your model, but do it manually. And I'll perhaps do another video on that another time. Do something like, I don't know, well, maybe create a table or create a barrel or something like that. But I'm not going to get into that today. But anyway, that's all looking pretty cool. I'm good to go with that. Next, and this is where it gets really, really simple. I've baked out in Mudbox before, and Mudbox is a little bit convoluted. This is so much easier, right? Basically, you go to where it says Bake next to Retopo, and you see that it's highlighted in yellow. Bake with normal map per pixel. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to leave all the settings as is. I'm not going to touch anything. Okay, so it does it all for you. How easy is that, right? Click OK. Again, just click OK. Don't worry about any of this business. Just click OK and let it work its magic. The only thing I would say here is I'm going to leave everything as is for now, but if, say for example, you are wanting to put this into, let's say you wanted to put it into Unreal Engine eventually, or you wanted to put it into Unity, or if you wanted to put it, say, back into Maya or into Blender or into any other programs, you might want to change the presets here. And you can see there 3ds Max, Blender, Maya, Substance Painter and Designer and Painter, Unity, Unreal Engine, ZBrush. You can even add things for other programs. You might be using Modo, for example. You might be using something else. You can change it, but just for the time being, we're not going to worry. Okay, leave that as is. That's a standard kind of setting for your UV set. Yeah, 2048 by 2048. Click OK. Let it work its magic. So basically, it's just baking out all the textures now from the model. Okay, the moment of truth, drumroll. Before we go into the paint shop, I'm just going to go back to Sculpt. So there's our model. You can see it in all its glory. Okay, yeah, it's all there. All looking good, right? I'm now just going to click on this eye symbol just to get rid of it. Okay, deep breath. Let's go through to paint and see what it looks like. Ah, okay, pleasantly surprised. All right, so if I just zoom in, right, so it looks like the model, right? Looks like the model, except it's not the model, it's the retopologized version. Yeah. If I just go back to Sculpt and just turn it back on again, you can see there. So this is the one that's really high poly. If I press W, you can see all the voxels there, and it's like it's gazillions. I'm not entirely sure. If I just press spacebar and go back to, say, resample, cancel that. Oops. So saying here 738,776 as opposed to this, which is 4,000. Yep. Yeah. So even though it kind of looks as detailed as the other, it's not. Yeah. Now there are some issues going on here which you can see, which you can remedy. So you can see there where I probably had, and this is down to me by the way, this isn't the program. It's there's some holes in the geometry there, and if you wanted to, you can kind of go back. There's a thing in the retopology where you can kind of fix these things, or is it in tweak? It might be in tweak. It might be retopology. Actually, that sec. You can fill these. You can fill these in by using some of the tools in here. I'll just bring that out again. There we go. See, there we go. So you can see the floor going on there. We've got this kind of hole going on. It's not the end of the world. I mean, it has, again, you have to kind of play around, and I'm not going to get into it too much in this video, but you could use, say, cap. I don't know, cap might work. And cap will basically pick 2 points. Well, it'll pick all the kind of points within that polygon area, and I'll click that. And has that worked? I'm not entirely sure. Again, it looks like it might have done it, then again it looks like it might not have done. If I just click backspace there again, so it's just a little bit hit and miss. You have to kind of like play around a little bit, see what it does. If I just go back through to paint now, that's still there. Go back to topo. So if I press go back a sec and say I could even try it with quads. I mean, that might be another way to kind of do it, or something like that. But again, I don't want to spend too much time, but you can correct these things. It's not the end of the world. Yeah, I can sort of use quads maybe. It's just fiddly, that's all. It's just fiddly to kind of do. You see there? There we go, result. And then I'll do the same thing again with this. See if that works. Okay, so that seems to have done that. And then we might even be able to take care of that with just using that cap just for that part there. See if we can just zoom in a little bit. Whoa, a bit too much. Or has it done it? It looks like it might have done it, I don't know. Anyway, you get the general idea. Yeah, but that's not the program, by the way, that's me. There's something that I've probably had like a gap there. So again, you just need to, you need to just spend a bit of time. So if that were indeed the case and you're doing this in real time, I would say go back to your model, have a look at it before you even, bake it out and sort of do it that way. But that said, for the meantime, that's a pretty good result, and depending on how much attention. If this is just like going to be like some standard prop in the distance, like in a room, just go with it. It's like, as long as it's not sort of cause any problems with any kind of holes in the geometry, as long as that's not going to be seen, then that's not necessarily a problem in terms of like for an environment. But as a general working practice, you want to make sure that your models are as good as, and also you might be in the future, you might be wanting to kind of make assets to sort of sell in the marketplace. So that could be on a myriad of different places, whether it's Turbo Squid, or it might even be on Unreal Engine marketplace, you name it. So so it's just a good practice. Anyway, that's bringing us to the close of this part of the video. So if you need to go over any of the other points during this video, of course, just rewind it, take it back, go back to it. So hopefully you'll be able to sort of take a model that you've sculpted, at least made in Maya, export it as an OBJ, put it into 3D Coat, and sort of voxelized it, retopologized